Hello, welcome to this week's story update. This week we're going to be speaking with Femi Redwood, who shared her story with us almost 6 years ago. So before we speak to Femi, let's take a look at her story.
I'm Femi Redwood. I'm from Milton, Delaware, which is about 15 minutes outside of Rehoboth Beach. Teeny tiny little place in Delaware with about 13 black people. 6 of them were my family. So after I came out, my first girlfriend was black. 2 or 3 girlfriends later, I was dating this white woman, white girl, whatever. She was a teenager too. But yeah, I was dating her and I was working at the outlets in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And I had a coworker who was a white gay male, and we worked together and we would have lunch together. It was really fun to hang out with. And so one night we're in his car. He says that he doesn't think black and white people should mix. They shouldn't be in relationships and they shouldn't mix. And he's telling me that he does not think basically that I should be with my girlfriend or like anyone of different races should be together. And like, you're a gay man. Like, this is the same ridiculousness that people put on you. Needless to say, we didn't talk much after that. So then I went to my college in Mississippi. I went to a historically black college because I wanted diversity. But the thing I noticed about Mississippi was that there's an abundance of African Americans, but they're separated. The LGBT community was separated from white people. So black and white people. You go to the Black Gay Club, and my best friend, who's half Asian, half white, he would be the only person that wasn't black inside, but it was men and women. It was fantastic. It was just so much fun, and it was great. And then you go into the white bar, and it's just white people. It's men and women, but just white people, where I would be the only black person. So that was Mississippi. It was great, but that was Mississippi, and I was ready to leave. So fast forward, I end up in New York, and I realize it's a division again, but a different kind of division. The gay bars appear where they might be mixed in color. It's very separated, and lesbians have their bars, gay men have their bars. And then if you walk into a lesbian bar, for the most part, you only see lesbians. Now there might be a couple gay men with you, but for the most part, you only see lesbians. And then when I go to gay men bars, you only see men. They just don't mix. So I was dating this one woman, so I told her, I would like to go to some Hell's Kitchen bar, something, and her reaction was, I don't like going to places with gay men. I don't like hanging out with gay men. I find that they're really shallow. And so it was shocking, much like the Delaware story, much like the guy in Delaware telling me that he doesn't think races should mix. It was shocking to hear someone in this time saying, I don't like gay men because of all of these negative perceptions. But it's still out there. That's still what people, even within our community, still think. And that's shocking and sad. So I've realized how different my perspective is because of how my life and how I was raised. In Delaware, it was a predominantly white community. And there's minority in a predominantly white community, but very accepting of LGBT people. And then college in Mississippi, it was more separated than I'd ever experienced in my life, more minorities than I'd ever experienced in my life, but very separated. And then fast forward in New York, we go to the same clubs, but it's separated by gender or sexual identity. But because I come from a place where we were together, I kind of want more, and I want better. I want to be able to go to a club and it not just be gay men. It's everyone. And I want to go, I have my best friend who's a man come with me to a lesbian bar and not feel like he's singled out or being picked on because he's a flamboyant gay man.
Okay, that was such an amazing story to watch again after all these years. And with us now is Femi Redwood. Femi, how are you doing?
I'm good. I can't believe it was 6 years ago. That seems like a lifetime ago. It's
I know,
crazy.
I know. Yeah, I think after this year, everything seems even further away. Even
Yeah.
earlier this year seems like 2 years
Oh
ago.
yeah. Yeah.
So how are you doing? Where are you now, and how are things going?
I'm in the same apartment, just, different wallpaper now or different painting. I am now married to an amazing woman. But yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thanks. Hopefully she won't come out here for another banana or bran muffin or something.
So how are y'all doing during COVID and quarantine?
I will say if we ever fussed before, we don't fuss now only because literally we have no one else to talk to or no one else to hang out with because we're not really hanging out with friends or anything right now. So if anything, in a weird way, it has almost become better for our relationship because like we don't fight or anything because there's just no point because it's like, okay, cool. Who are you going to blow off steam with? No one except each other. So yeah, it is what it is. We're both home a lot, which is an adjustment, but I can't complain. Like we still have our apartment. So yeah, I can't complain.
Good, good. I'm glad that's working out, and that your relationship is doing well despite spending so much time together. I think that's a really good sign. So, and congratulations again on the marriage.
Thank you.
So, rewatching your story, I mean, I'm being very sarcastic here. So, since 6 years, like the racial and gender divide has been fixed. Everything's fine now in the queer
Yeah.
community, right?
Woohoo! Congrats.
We
Life
did
is
it.
beautiful and perfect. We did in 6 short years, except not really. There's still a divide. I mean, pre-COVID here in New York City, the bar and club scene was still divided. It was gay or lesbian. There's been, since a sort of more queer parties. So I mean, there's a few queer parties, maybe a couple of times a month for the most part, which is sort of, I don't want to say it's fixed the divide, but even in a lot of the queer parties, I find it to be more women than men. So I still think it's pretty divided, more women or gender nonconforming folks. So yeah, I still think it's pretty divided. In regards to race, it's definitely still divided. I mean, recently there's been two Black-owned gay bars that opened up in Harlem. But outside of those two, I can't think of any more. There used to be one in Brooklyn years ago that had been around for decades, but that one closed. So yeah, it's still racially, it's still pretty divided. When my wife and I do go out, oftentimes I'm one of the few Black people in the space. There are Black parties, but within the Black parties, there's not a lot of white folks. So there's still definitely that racial divide. There's still definitely that gender divide here in New York.
Yeah. And have you been anywhere? So you talked in your story about Delaware, about Mississippi and New York. In the past 6 years, have you been anywhere else where you've observed any other regional differences in the community?
Yeah, so I'm an anchor and correspondent, and when you work in news, you oftentimes may take a contract out of state. So for 2 years, I left New York. My wife stayed here, but I took a job, an anchor and reporter job in Flint, Michigan. And it's interesting because Flint is a predominantly Black city. There are not any, first of all, there weren't any Black gay bars or really any gay bars in the city of Flint, but just outside of Flint. So it's still literally, we're talking like half a mile outside of Flint. There was a gay bar, predominantly men, mostly white people. And here's why, or at least here's why I think so. The first weekend when I moved to Flint, my wife came down with me, helped me move there. And we went to the one gay bar that was around there, gay, lesbian, just one bar. There was something in some spaces in Detroit, but that was about an hour and a half away. So we went to the one gay bar, and the first thing we see when we walk inside is a man wearing a Lock Her Up shirt in regards to Hillary Clinton. And then like there's someone else wearing a Trump t-shirt. And for Black folks, when you see those things, it's you're automatically uncomfortable. So automatically I'm uncomfortable in that space because number one, you're wearing a Lock Her Up t-shirt. Oh, and there was also like on the back of it was like the not a noose, but like a symbol for basically signifying like hang Hillary. So you see that, you see the person wearing the Trump shirt, you don't see any other Black folks. So I'm like, okay, cool. totally get this bar. This is not a bar that I am going to go to. This is just not my space. But, a couple of weeks passed and I said, I want to try it out again. Maybe that was just one odd night, but it was the same thing where besides
And
the
this
fact
was
it wasn't much.
this was the LGBT bar, or this is
Yeah, this is
another random.
the
Oof.
only gay bar in Flint, the only gay bar in Flint. And literally, as soon as you walk in, you see someone wearing a Lock Her Up t-shirt with the hanging symbol on the back, and then someone else wearing the Trump t-shirt. So after that first experience, we're like, dead, never going here again. But then I said, you know what? No, I'm going to try because I want to support local LGBTQ bars in my area. Plus, quite frankly, I wanted to meet other gay folks in Flint. So tried going again, and it was the same thing. Besides the fact that there just weren't many Black people, it just certainly wasn't welcoming for me as a Black lesbian, and it's still the same type of t-shirts and whatnot, which is odd because you don't expect that in a gay bar. So then, of course, me being the reporter, I'm going to dig into this. And so I go and I look at the bars, the owner, the bartender, some of their Facebook pages, and I see Islamophobic postings, postings that were very racist towards Latinos, postings that are very racist towards Black people. And which then is just like, well, how was it that this is a gay bar? And this is 2018. No, 2017. How is this a gay bar in 2017? Or at this point, it may have become 2018, whatever. But a gay bar. And it's Islamophobic, it's racist, it's sexist, rather the people that work there, including the owner, have all of these offensive traits. And then it's a reminder that just because you are LGBTQ doesn't mean that you're not racist. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be Islamophobic, and it doesn't mean that you are going to not have gender biases. But yeah, Flint, the gay bar in Flint was so disappointing. So I went one more time because I am a glutton for punishment. So I went maybe like a year or two later, and it was the same thing. I went with a Black coworker, and we both left and was just like, never again. And so as odd as it was, there was a bar, just regular straight bar, a lot of cops, lawyers and reporters hung out there in Flint. And that was a place that I was so much more comfortable because that bar just was not welcoming to me as a Black woman, especially then when you see all of these horrible, horrible beliefs just on display. So alas, the divide definitely exists outside of the city. I still talk to friends in Mississippi who say it's the same thing. It hasn't changed. There's still, gay bar. I mean, there's still white bar, Black bar. It has not changed despite the fact that it has been 6 years later. Realistically, I'm not sure if it will ever change, truth be told.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the difference in like geography, what that is. Do you think that that's a population size, or is it like the history of the region? Obviously the South, and then New York is so big, so you have the number of people to segregate in that way, and then Flint is, I feel like, its own, like, what is it, and what do you think can be done to, like, in my mind immediately, without thinking too much about it yet, I'm like, in Flint, what a great opportunity to open a queer bar that is welcoming and make sure that everyone knows it is for everyone. And but easy for me to say, I'm not in Flint, so and I'm white, so I don't have to deal with what you experience. But yeah, what do you think about all that?
I think it's the way that people identify. So even though I'm a lesbian, I am Black first, and then I'm a woman, and then I'm a lesbian. And so when you look at Flint, a lot of these folks, they were white, they were men, and then they were gay. And so even though they were gay, they still had the privilege of sort of being white men. And I think that sort of shaped it. I mean, the way some of as I got to know the community a bit more in Flint, the way some of the Black folks, some of the gay Black folks who've lived there for a while, the way they explained it to me was this bar, Flint, Detroit, GM, all of these automakers. But the way they explained it is this bar was a GM bar, just happened to be gay. And so in the same way that you would go on the factory floor at GM and you would see predominantly white men, you now just saw some that were gay. So even though they were gay, they're still identifying as white men and that privilege that goes along with it. So it's almost just like, the expecting them to be open and all of these things just because they're gay, it's what I've realized is just silly and immature and quite frankly childish. It's a dream. We would love it if all of these disenfranchised communities did not have all of these isms, but that's certainly not the case. And then moving back to New York, I think definitely, yeah, because there's so many people, it is easier for people to have their own spaces because there is this big population, but at the same time, we are tribal. That is just human nature since the beginning of time. So humans are always going to go into their little tribes. In New York, it's gay men in Hell's Kitchen, lesbians everywhere, sort of, or not everywhere because they're not everywhere, but the few lesbian bars in the city, and it's still a predominantly white space. And in Mississippi, it's the same thing. Just because someone may be gay or LGBTQ doesn't mean that they're not going to be racist. So they're still going to be with their little tribes, which is why in Mississippi, you're seeing the same divide that you saw, really in a lot of these places.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that things are not all fixed in 6 years, but hopefully everyone will keep working on it and, keep trying to do better. So,
I think you're more optimistic than I am. I don't think anyone is going. Yeah, I'm just here. Just an example, because it's not just like an LGBTQ thing. It is just human nature. But this weekend, this weekend. What's today? Today is Tuesday. This weekend. So despite living in Jackson, Mississippi, 2 different places in South Carolina, Delaware, Flint, Michigan, I got called the N-word for the first time this weekend in New York City by a person of color. So realistically, I don't think, call me pessimistic, I don't think it's going to get better. It just is what it is. It is what it is. But I do love your optimism.
I am hopeful that things will get better, but also, there's a lot of work and mud to climb through. And, obviously white people need to do better. Men need to do better. Gay white men need to do better. There's a lot of work that everyone needs to do and look in and think and learn and grow. So hopefully at least that will happen more and continue happening. So, and I'm sorry that happened to you or anywhere, but especially in your
in New York of all places. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, Femi, it's been wonderful speaking to you again. Hopefully it won't be another 6 years until we chat again. And I miss you. I miss you and your
Likewise.
wife. We know each other out of I'm from Crystal too. And but it's good to see your face and hear your voice. And I hope that y'all are doing well and hope to see y'all soon. So everyone, if you have any questions for Femi, feel free to leave them in the comments. Femi, maybe you could check back every now and then and answer some of the comments. And everyone else, check back next week for our next story update. Thanks for watching.